Hello, Barry, how are you?
Hey, how are you doing, Johnny?
I'm all right, thank you.
Number 21.
I know. I can't believe it. We're well into 1987 now, aren't we? I mean,
this period today will go between about 87 and the end of 89. I had to learn so much in the 3-year period because I didn't want to be involved in records or record labels, but as an artist manager, you had to do that, you know.
Yeah. And of course, around this time as well, it was almost for you like getting the keys to the door of a new chapter in a way, because
yeah, absolutely,
you'd actually voted for the government.
Voted. Yeah, Maggie had got in.
Yeah.
I voted because now I'm a young businessman. I thought, right, you got to think about politics now. Will it affect your business and taxes and things? So of course Maggie won. Maggie started a YTS scheme, and I've took somebody on for 16 quid a week.
Oh my gosh.
So I did feel all grown up. So it's happened that it's 21, but also, you know yourself, you always said at 21 you got the key to the door. I think they give them the key to the door about 4 years old now. But back in the day, you got the key to the door at 21. And I got the key to a record label in this period that was called Key Records, funny enough. And that was a bizarre turn of events. It was a baptism of fire. Definitely.
Amazing. So around that time as well, you took on a young girl, didn't you, called Tracy Wood?
That's right, yeah. That was the YTS scheme, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was that like? You sort of got the keys to your new office and you're employing people. I mean, you must have felt really grown up.
Yeah, I did. And it's funny because I've always believed, right, I've been in business 53 years now, just in May. I've always believed to be legitimate in business, you should pay your taxes, pay your VAT, and do your business properly. Now, I know probably people would laugh at that, but I genuinely believe that. I think if you're in a business and you're not paying taxes and you're not paying people, then you're not a legitimate business, really. Yeah. So I felt all grown up. And I suppose in reality, really, when I got to that age, I was in my mid-20s or whatever it was, I was already pretty grown up in the sense of knowing the world and living the world and not having a father and having a mom and lots of brothers and sisters. And so I kind of, I felt grown up at 13, really. That, no doubt about it. And I've always been quite mature. So, but I felt, hang on, I've got an office, a proper office. I've got a YTS girl. I've voted for Maggie Thatcher. Now, I'll tell you in a later episode, we actually did a breakfast show for Margaret Thatcher with Norma sometime after. So I'll tell you about that in another podcast. But things were going amazing with Norma. Now, obviously, I took on Norma around about 1984. We're now at the tail end of 87. So we'd done a lot. And she was, we'd got lots of different record deals and offered in different parts of the country. Well, I didn't own a record label and I didn't plan to manage artists. So it was, I had to learn. You just had to learn as you went along. So we got involved with different record labels, and we'd had the deal with London Records. We'd released Dancing with the Desperate, which I think we talked about being on Radio 1 as record label. I'd learnt about being a managed taking artist to a record company, but even that, the deal wasn't done with the record company. It was done with the production company, who then took it to the record company. So I knew none of this. I just thought a record company liked you, they give you some money, you made a record. No. There was all sorts of routes to get a record deal. And with Norma, she also was very, very in demand as a session singer. Now, even then, back in 86, 87, 88, when she was getting £1,000 to do a vocal.
Wow.
And it's what you call a non-featured vocal. So you wasn't named, but you were a featured vocal on a track. And but as a featured vocal, you often got quite a big fee. Norma, she was so incredible. When if we were going to record a single, we'd go to the studio to work out the key and everything, listen to the song. You'd go in, and by the time I'd gone and made a cup of tea and come back, she'd done the vocal. She'd done it. And said, that's it, we've done it one take, done, finished. Wow. And that happened a lot. And that's what they want as a session singer, because time is money, and you go in, bash, knock track out. And we did stuff with, Michael Hutchins and obviously In Excess. Before they were successful here, they had a big hit record called Burn For You in Australia, where they were from. Now, Norma did part of the main vocal on that with him. This is an up-and-coming singer. She'd been in Shack Attack, got gold disc from Shack Attack. We did, Tim Finn had an album called Beacon. It was the Finn brothers. They were major. Obviously, Pete Townsend from The Who were in his band. She did a vocal on a Slade track on their comeback comeback single when they did the Radio Wall of Fame was their first hit in years. So we were in demand as a session singer that was just normally bringing in money for that session. But I was trying to make sure we come out of it with a career as Norma Lewis, the recording artist, you know. So it was great that we were getting offered all the things, and then America was doing really, really well. I mean, it really was. But obviously for me, in this period, as I said, it was like a baptism of fire because I didn't own a record company. I didn't really know a record company worked. You know, I'd bought enough records in my time for 32p from Woolworths, but I didn't really know the process. So you had to learn. And as I say, when we did the deal with the production company, that was the first kind of harsh lesson for me. We got a single called Dance from the Desk, but the advance was £20,000. That's 1984, 85. They got an advance for £20,000 with a single. Now, that was the production company. Norma, as the vocalist, only got £2,500 because they paid for the production, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you're an artist. You're not a big name. You're on royalties. But nevertheless, we got a record released. It was really, really huge. And we were flying, you know. But that, again, was a process because the contract had to be done with a lawyer in London. We did the contract with the lawyer, and it was like, it was like 28 pages. And you had to initial every page and every paragraph. And I'm like, gee, what a load of palaver. But when we said, you know, we know Norma's getting £2,500 advance. He's doing the thing. But how much is your contract? You know, what's your fee? Well, lo and behold, his fee, guess what, was £2,500. Isn't that funny?
Oh, my goodness.
His fee was exactly what we got. So if we'd have got £3,000, I guess it would have been £3,000. So then I thought, yeah, hang on a minute. 20,000 has been paid for a song. We're getting £2,500, of which we're getting nothing because of the legal fees. So from that day, I never used a lawyer again, ever. Wow. Never again. No, that was the one and only time I was taken for a ride in the money set. But I say, things were going swimmingly well with Norma. I'd been asked to manage other artists, which I didn't really want to. I'd done bits and pieces, done one or two other singers. And then there was another girl came, and this same production company came with a great record called Satellites. My girl called Ellie. Well, now I say girl, you know, because Ellie, phenomenal singer, a great voice, but she was probably about 36. Now, that was old for a dance artist because then the dance artists were all 18, 20. Yeah. But she was phenomenal. The single was amazing, a track called Satellite, and all of her gigs with her band, all of them were Jewish weddings. That's what she got big money, and that's what she did. We've got a dance record. Sorry, darling, you're going to go and play in front of 3,000 gay people tonight, and you're going to sing one song, and there's no band, right? Oh my goodness! So I know it's a bit different. No band, one song, 3,500 gay people, but the track become huge and huge and huge. Yeah. And then, in fact, that just before that New Year, I'd taken her out to Portugal to do a gig. Now, this is another area where I started to learn about record companies. So I realised, sounds good getting a $20,000 advance, but we pocketed not a penny for Norma from the record deal. We made a lot of money from the gigs. But then, this Satellites was big, and we'd done really big. You know, I'd been promoting stuff in all the clubs, and you know, we'd loads of PAs. If I could get a kangaroo to box, I would. You know, anything different, I got. You know, so as I went into clubs, I built all these relationships. So when the Ellie song came out, this production company said, Barry, we'd love you to do promo for it. Yeah, okay, no problem. We'll promote it for you, but only as a promoter. Don't want to be her artist manager, and I don't want to be an agent. But yeah, okay, but I'll get her a couple of gigs because I've got people like the one in Portugal. So he said, right, again, they sold the song for $20,000. This one was to EMI. The first one was to London Records for Norma. This was to EMI. They sold the single for $20,000. She probably got $1,000. Possibly, because Norma was a bigger name. So she probably got $1,000. And then EMI said to the production, look, we don't really know what to do with her because she's mumsy, she's 36, record sounds like it should be somebody 17. She tells us she's never done a PA before. You know, how are we going to do this? And he said, look, why didn't you get Barry involved? And at the time we were calling ourselves BT Management, an agency. Get Barry involved. He does all the clubs. Okay, so they called me into EMI, and I went in to meet them, and I said, look, guys, you know, no problem at all. I'll have her do 60 or 70 nightclub appearances over a period of about 2 or 3 weeks, leading up to the release of the record. Then after the record's released, we'll do another week or two, depending on how good the record goes. Yeah, brilliant. And then the guy said, look, just sit for a while. I'm just going to go talk to the bosses. But yeah, we definitely want you to do it. So I'm sitting in this office, and there's a box next to the desk. I'm in the A&R guy's office, and he's gone to talk to the manager. And there's a box next to me with all these cassettes. So I'm picking up the cassettes, and I quickly realised these are all the cassettes that get posted in to the record label. Please give me a record deal. I'm the new Beatles. I'm the new whatever. So I'm picking a few out and looking at them. The guy comes back and he said, okay, Barry, we've got a deal. I said, blimey. I said, do you get a lot of these stuff coming? Because it's mostly on cassette then. I said, do you get lots of demos? He said, oh, God, thousands. He said, actually, Barry, well, I'll just go and print off the contract. Do you mind going through them? And I thought, going through them? What are you on about? And pick out all the TDK cassettes. Okay? So you pick out Bassif, Philip, something, some cheap one. Oh, TDK. So by the time he come back in with the contract and all that, I'd pick the TDK cassettes, put the others back in the box.
Yeah.
I said, what are you going to do then? I said, so these ones, are you going to listen to them first because they've chosen a really expensive cassette?
Yeah.
He said, oh, no. He said, I'm just going to have the cassettes because they're good. So he just took the cassettes to use for himself. Thank you very much. So in my way, I was thinking, well, perhaps he goes, right, these people in the past, when people sent me a record in some first class, I open that before the second class. If you want me to get it, why would you send it second class?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's obviously cost.
Yeah.
So I thought he meant get 10 out and I'll listen to the first 10 TDK. No, he put them in his bag, so I'll use them at home. All the others are rubbish cassettes. so I thought, oh, okay, that's how a record company works. Then the next thing, I learned something new again. He said, right, Barry, what are we going to do? They probably paid me about £1,000, which was a lot of money, 87. They paid me about £1,000. He said, right, Barry, what are we going to do? You guarantee? I said, I guarantee you I will get you 60 PAs. Before I even make a call, she'll be on 60 nightclubs. She'll do one song. She might do 5 in a night, which you're going to find unusual because she normally does a wedding and stays the night in a hotel. I said, she'll spend most of the nights driving in a car to the next town. So he said, okay, you come highly recommended. We're going to leave that with you. But I do need you to do one thing. I said, whatever you want, I'm thinking, wow, I'm working there. My people can't get through the door. They can't get the CDs, listen to all the cassettes, but I'm in there. I'm in the room.
Gosh.
And he said, I need you to do one thing for me. He said, when you invoiced me, he said, I'll make sure that you're paid. He said, but I can't say it's you. I said, well, who do we say it is then? What do you mean? He said, well, this is how it is. This is EMI Records. We have a brilliant marketing team out, apparently, but they're useless. But if I employ you, I will get in trouble. So we've got to say our marketing team done it. I said, I don't care, mate. As long as the money goes in my bank and not theirs, I don't care. I'm not looking for credit. I just want to get paid.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what happened. We could never say we were the pluggers. When he went to his bosses and they said, oh, wow, 60 PAs. Haven't the team done well? Yeah. Like how they were down the pub.
Oh, my God.
So again, I'm thinking, this record company industry is a bit weird, isn't it? And of course, years later, which we will come on to, I made a documentary with the Cook Report about the music industry and about the charts, and that'll be a full-blown podcast on its own. So now I've got this in my head. We started recording an album because we went out to America and we did this thing in Douglas Dunes, which was a gay resort, and we got our own cottage on the resort. It was called Douglas Dunes in Flint, Michigan. It was in a place called Sagatuck, and I loved the name so much. I said to Nora, write that down, Back from Sagatuck. One day we're going to make an album called Back from Sagatuck. Well, we did. A couple of years later, we did. And I released it on my own label. We'd started recording because you're always in the studio doing stuff. Then we'd obviously done the deal with Key Records, the Spanish company that had come to Milton Keynes to see Norma. They released the first single called I'm Gonna Tell Him Tonight on Key Records. Now, to give you a bit of context, during that period, do you remember Jive Bunny? There was
I do,
Bunny.
yeah.
And they did big disco mix-ups. It was
mashups
of all the hits. And I think it was called Jive Bunny and the Mix Masters or something like that. Well, they were huge. I mean, they were just banging in the charts like crazy. Well, this guy's at Key Records, one was a car mechanic, and one fitted kitchens, which is fine. I mean, I was a builder when so that wasn't unusual to me that they had other jobs.
Yeah.
They loved dance music so much. They couldn't believe the phenomenon coming out of England, the Jive Bunny and the Mix Masters. And they said, I bet we could do that. I bet we could do something like that if we formed a label. And they'd obviously wanted to have a label. So they formed a record label called Key Records. They did a thing called Disc Jockey Mix. So it was exactly like Jive Bunny, but Disc Jockey Mix, aimed at 14-year-olds, really, I suppose, 14, 15-year-olds. And it was vinyl then. It was vinyl 12-inch singles then at the time. So, well, okay, they've done all these mixes, got ready, gone out, got a distribution deal. They never released anything at that point. This was just before we released Norma's single. And that's why they wanted to sign an artist. So we then say, well, what's the plan? So we'll come and see us. We go to see him, and he showed us They released this album called Disc Jockey Mix, which was on vinyl. Well, it exploded. It went to number one in the Spanish charts. They made £250,000. Now, this is a record company that's just started up, and that'd be like getting £1 million now, I suppose.
Yeah.
In today's money. So they have this major hit record, suddenly made £250,000. They went and got themselves offices, and I think the Barcelona Olympics was in about 1992, if I'm right. And they were saying, well, the Barcelona Olympics are going to be here. We're going to buy that bit of land because when they have the Olympics, we can build some of them, make a loan. Okay, great, good business, invest the money. So they bought some land, went to meet some people. They got a brand new office with about 12 staff. Now, bear in mind, a year before they didn't exist. So they went for it, really. But of course, if your first hit record has just made £250,000, it's number one in the charts. Brilliant. Now, these guys were lucky in some sense because luck carries you part of the way.
Yeah.
Secondly, they were naive, so they didn't understand stuff. Now, the record had gone in the charts. All the record labels were saying, all the radios, are you doing a follow-up? Yeah, of course we're doing a follow-up. Now, they released a 12-inch single. It was about, we call it £4. I'll say pounds rather than euros just to make it easy to understand. So it's about £4. They decided to release the second one. All the marketing, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do the other. This is all going on while we're discussing us having a deal with them. And they said, obviously, put Norma's single out on the Tell Him Tonight, but we also are going to release the next Disc Jockey Mix album. Yeah, fantastic, no problem. So when you release vinyl, 80-gram vinyl was good quality, but some of the other companies did cheaper quality vinyl, 60-gram or whatever. But 80-gram vinyl was considered good, that good quality. So anyway, again, how many do we order? They probably only ordered a few thousand of these and they have to keep repressing. So they ordered, I think they ordered about 500,000 records for stock, ready to release. Well, that was a lot. That would have been a lot of money. Now, when the records were released, distributed to all the shops, DJs are playing the tracks everywhere. They're about to have this massive hit again. Another big one, probably going to make £2 million from this one. Except, as naive people, they listened to the marketing team, they listened to other people and said, oh, yeah, okay, if that's the best way, we'll do it, without thinking of the consequences. Now, what happened with now, bear in mind, this album was set at about £4, this 12-inch single, which was affordable to 12 to 16-year-old, that sort of group. So it was affordable just. So the second album, they decide to release it as a triple album. The triple album being 3 pieces of vinyl. So that was 3 12-inch singles, all being pressed. That's a lot more money. Then the sleeve has to be a gatefold sleeve because it's 3 pieces of vinyl. So you have to put them in different packaging. They were sent to all the shops. Bingo, ringo. They're ready to, they bought the land. They're ready to build this thing for the Olympics. They're ready to do this, ready to do that. Everything's going well. The record's playing really well. They get a call from the distributor, gets a call from one of the shops. Thanks a lot. We've had all the delivery, but unfortunately, the package is faulty. What's the problem? Well, all the packaging has collapsed. What do you mean collapsed? Well, so it gets returned to the distributor. Next day, 10, 15 shops call. It's all damaged. What do you mean it's damaged?
Oh, my goodness.
And what had happened was 2 things that really messed it up. And this was just naivety and inexperience. Number one, instead of just releasing another 12-inch single for £4, they decided to do a triple album for about £10. Which, one, that put it out at the price range of 15-year-olds to purchase. It become too expensive, right? So that was the first. But again, if it was a big hit, they'd have probably found the money and bought it. But secondly, the people that did the manufacturing, they manufactured high-quality vinyl, which was good, 80 gram, but you got 3 pieces of vinyl, which are heavy. When they printed the sleeve, which had 3 slots in for 3 records, the card was so thin, all the packaging collapsed.
Oh, my goodness.
So when they were delivered in boxes of 50 or whatever they are, every single cardboard pack was crushed because of the weight of the vinyl. So that was it. So it was scrapped. They were getting phone calls from everybody. It was returned to the shops. So that was their thing. That was nothing to do with me. We just knew there was some issues and they were keeping quiet about it. We knew the things going on. We knew they were worried, we could tell. So they put our single out, which was fantastic. It went to the radio, just a 7-inch single. That went out, absolutely brilliant. We went over there. We did a couple of big TV shows. We only did a couple because we were expecting to get bigger and bigger and do a full tour. So we're now over there and we're doing that. And then they said, right, we're going to start working on an album with Norma. I found him a producer, flew him over there. He records all the tracks. Now, in that meantime, which is, I don't know, maybe it's 6 weeks, me and Norma are off. We went back to America. We were invited to America to do 1 song.
Wow.
We got paid $3,000 for the show, 1 song.
Oh, my goodness.
We got flown to Atlanta, the two of us, so that's 2 flights. Hotel for a week, and we did a thing called the Fortune Theatre. Now, the night before at Fortune Theatre, Prince was on. The night after, Paul Young was on. In the middle of that was Gay Pride. So Norma was the star attraction, and she just did Dancing with the Desperate, this one song. So I'm thinking, Jesus, man, we're getting all this money.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting flown to America. So we did that while this record was being recorded, and we left Key Records, you know, we left them alone with the key to the door and said, crack on, lads, we're off to America. We come back from America. I call the guy, and he was a DJ in England, a friend of mine. He was flying out to Barcelona every Friday. He was paying a dep in the nightclubs in England to do his DJing Friday and Saturday. So he was having to pay for them. So I said, look, just get them to reimburse you that. Just say, if we got to do this, I've got to pay another DJ. So they did that. And then he recorded the album. The album was done. Then I said, right, we're going to fly Norma out. And I said, Norma, I don't want to spend a week there while you're recording. I'm going to fly you out. You know Barry really well. He's great. You know the guys. You've met the family. All their wives are involved and everything. So she flies out and does all the vocals. Again, whacked out the entire album in a week. And she phoned me up. She said, there's rumblings and all sorts of. I said, what do you mean? She said, I don't know. She said, it's not the fun-loving families that we had. I said, what do you mean? She said, there seems to be a lot of rowing going on and that. She said, but I can't get to the bottom of it. I said, well, don't worry. You focus on your bit, do your album, get back on the plane, and then I'll arranged to meet them. So I phoned Isadora. I said, Isadora, look, it's clear to me there's something going on because I can see the change in the last 3 months from when we first met with you. The single's come out. You're really happy with the single. We've recorded the album. Now, you know, I need to get the album, get a copy out to England or listen to it. We'll discuss with you what should be the next single. We'll start planning promotion here and promotion in Spain. He said, brilliant. Okay. I said, well, we need to get the masters from the studio now. The producer's finished. The album's done. Right. Look, so I called the studio and they said, I'm at the studio now. So look, ask the guys, when you fly back on Friday, ask them to give you a copy of the album on a disc. And bring it back, and I'll start reviewing it, and we'll plan pictures and what, you know, all the normal planning. And anyway, he's going to leave, and he said, Barry, we got a problem. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they won't give me the album. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I won't give the masters. I said, well, you don't need the masters. The record company will have the masters. Just get them to copy it onto a CD so I can listen. Now they're refusing to because they haven't been paid. I said, no. I said, well, don't worry, Barry. You know, fly home, get back. You've done your job. I'll talk it. So I'm talking to this Isadora, and I said, Isadora, listen, there's something wrong. Just be straight with me. We'll work it out together. He said, well, what's that, mate? He told me the whole story about the records. All the records were called back. They lost about £500,000 because all the packages were damaged. Couldn't be resolved. It was too late to go and get everything reprinted, repressed. They were all stacked in this warehouse. So I said, look, I'll fly out and see you, and I do want to get the album. I said, well, he said, well, don't fly out to the moment. We're not quite sure what we're doing. It's okay. So Barry come back without the album. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm thinking, well, why are we not getting the album? There's something going on, you know. So then what happens? I called the studio and said, look, what's the problem? He said, you know, we've not been paid. I said, well, what's the issue? They were owed equivalent of £6,000. So probably, I don't know, at the time, about €8,000. So anyway, I called Isadora. I said, Isadora, look, we can't release the tapes. I'll pay the studio and we'll sort it all out. Don't worry. We don't want to lose the album. We've done the album. That's going to make us the money. So let's get the recording, you know.
Yeah.
So I then think, well, where am I going to get £6,000 from? I phoned a bank manager, because in them days you could phone your bank manager. You know, I'm in the music business. Nightmare. Norma's recording an album. Now, Norma was with that bank as well. So she knew the amount of money we were turning over. I said, I've got a problem. There's a bank there's a recording studio in Spain, and they won't release some tapes till we get paid. He said, no problem at all. We'll completely add this to your overdraft, 6,000. We'll transfer it. Transferred it, paid the studio. Right? Now, bear in mind, we're not there. And bear in mind, our producers left and flown back. Yeah. So we paid the studio and said, right, Key Records are going to come, you know, they're going to pick up our album. Well, in the meantime, it was all getting a bit chaotic. And I thought, right, I'm flying out. I texted Isadora and said, I'll be over in a couple of days. I fly out. I go back to the original hotel we stayed at, checked into the hotel, and he said, Key Records. I said, no, I'm not Key Records. I'm Barry Tomes. I'm BT Management. He said, no. Key Records, record company. You own the record company. I said, no. I don't own the record company. I work with the record company. The hotel had not been paid from our last trip. Barry's hotel had not been paid. So I explained to him, look, I've come to see them anyway. I said, whatever you're owed, that's up to you. There's my card. I'm paying my bill. Don't worry. I'm going to see them tomorrow. So I drove off to their studio and said, look, you know, guys, what's going on? All the staff had gone. They got rid of all the staff at the office. It was just the two brothers. And I said, and he took me into the warehouse. He said, look, and this warehouse was full of like £500,000 records, all the packages. Gosh. And all they'd done, they'd used really thin cardboard instead of thick cardboard.
Oh, my goodness.
So I said, right, well, we're in trouble. Then he said, yeah, basically we'll go bankrupt. The bank are going to call back the land over there. They're taking that. I said, okay, I really want to work with you. I like working with you. I'm glad we've got the album. I said, no, you need to get the album I've paid the people. You need to get the album. You owe me the money. So when we sort out, you'll owe me $6,000. Yeah, no problem. They were really grateful I was being conciliatory about it. I said, let's just focus. Let's go forward. So I come back to England and they said, we can't save the company. We've got to go bankrupt. I said, look, I've had an idea. On the way back on the plane, I had an epiphany. Don't worry, I've got a plan. Now, bear in mind, I don't know nothing about record companies. I don't own a record company. I said, why don't we launch Key Records Limited in the United Kingdom, start up a brand new company, limited company. It'll have nothing to do with Spain, and we'll carry on with the project here. We'll put the record out from England. It'll be your record company. You'll own it. I don't own record companies. It's nothing to do with me. But why don't? So they agreed. So we said, okay, we went out, set up a limited company. Key Records did a new logo. We used my address, set it all up. I said, look, we've got to have a bit of a plan. He said, well, we've still got so much mess going on and they hadn't paid this one, they hadn't paid that one. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger. So look, you've got to solve all of that. Our record company over here is empty, it's clean, it's not attached to you. I think I was the director and somebody else. I said, so now, at this point, I said, let's just focus on getting Norma's album done. Yeah. Did you get the masters? No, they didn't release them. Well, I've paid £6,000, so they've got to release them. Oh, my God. No. Then it turns out they owed them money for this album that had gone wrong. Oh, no. And they'd promised to pay them for that because, look, don't worry, we're going to sell 500,000 copies at £10. Well, nothing happened. So nobody got paid. I never, ever got the tapes. Lost my $6,000. But still thinking, well, let's try and rescue it. I said, what we need now, I said, we've got no money now for the record labeling. You can't send any money. You can't fund it, but it's set up. We got about £1,000 we put in the bank. Let me come up with something. Let me just think. Now, in the middle of all this, I'm trying to be a manager. I've got all my nightclub things going on. I'm checking the boxing kangaroos all right, make sure he's fed, and Dracula and all these mad things. All this is still going on, and fitting the odd tumble dryer or washing machine, So it's like, am I really this mad? So now, then a bizarre thing happens. At that time, or around sometime in that period, a brand new TV show come on that was awful. Oh my God, it was so bad. And it was called Prisoner Cell Block 8. Oh, I remember. Now, if you remember that, right? Now,
that was awful.
The sets were falling over. It was all a female prison. There was a lot of lesbian activity, which was fine by me, but at the time it wasn't quite as open as it is now. No. So it was either going to explode or disappear. So they only showed the series in Central TV in Birmingham. Nowhere else had the series. Yeah. Now, it also had this god-awful theme tune called He Used to Give Me Roses, and it was awful. The theme tune was dreadful. Anyway, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, I thought, even I'm enjoying this show. It's so bad. You got to watch it now. It was changed to Prisoner Cell Block H here because we already had The Prisoner with Patrick McGoon. Yeah, was a series. So it was only called Prisoner, I think, in Australia, but here they called it Prisoner Cell Block H. This theme tune was amazing. Then all of a sudden, I'm watching television, Central Weekend, one evening. Oh, we've had lots and lots of letters. He said, receiving loads of letters from people saying they love this new TV series that Central TV is showing. Where can you buy the theme tune? Used to Give Me Roses. And it was awful. I mean, it was a Reg Watson track, but it was god awful. And probably made him millions, so bless. Anyway, I thought, well, I mean, that's quite a lot of demand for that. So then I do a bit of research, and we didn't have internet. We only had a phone. I had a fax machine. I traced the people in Australia, made some phone calls to Australia like midnight because they were 12 hours ahead or something, made these phone calls, found out who the TV company was. I said, look, everybody in England is asking where they can buy the song. Somebody must have the song. I don't know who it is. He said, well, it's available on the compilation of TV shows because it had been out about 5 years before in Australia. Yeah. So it had been, again, a popular song. It had gone out. It had gone on a TV compilation as we used to do back in the day. So I found it wasn't released as a single. I said, well, look, somebody somewhere must have the control of that record. One of the 4 or 5 phone calls, we said, well, actually, looking at this, the rights are owned by so-and-so, so-and-so, or not necessarily owned, but controlled by someone in Monte Carlo. I said, Monte Carlo, that's closer than Australia. That'll do. It's only a bit south in France. I can go to Monte Carlo and find them. Now I'm like, are you mad? I'll nip this washing machine in for Mrs. Brown and I'll go to Monte Carlo. So, but that's how my life was. I probably still got the plumber's spanner in my back pocket when I walked in. So then, now I then at that time also attended a thing called Medium. Now, everybody will know the Cannes Film Festival is held in Cannes, France. Everybody, it's been going for 50 years. But also in January every year, they had a thing called Medium, which ran for 50 years. And it was a music conference, and about 16,000 record labels from all over the world would go there for a week in January and swap tracks, buy tracks. Artists would do showcases. So I'd already been to that to try and figure out how to get Norma deals and stuff. But I'd only been once. And I thought, right, that's near Monte Carlo. I'm going down to Cannes. I'll try and call this company and see if the guy is willing to meet me. So I said, look, I'll be at Medium. He said, oh, I'll be at Medium, no problem. I said, oh, fantastic. Now, I arrive at Medium, Barry Tomes, the manager, BT Management, pushing my artist Norma Lewis, trying to talk about the track from Key Records and just find out who's who, really. It was all quite new to me. So then I met this guy and he shook my hand and he said, pleased to meet you. I said, well, look, I said, it's a bit strange here. I said, but I am helping a record company from Spain. Didn't say they'd gone bankrupt. I'm helping a record company from Spain. They've just launched a label in England and I really want them to have a hit record to fund the label, basically. That's the only way I could put it. He said, brilliant, great business. He said, well, what is it you want? I said, well, I understand that you control or in some way administer this track from the series. He said, that's right. And I didn't know about licensing at all. I said, well, how could I get that released on Key Records Limited? And he said, well, you have to license it from us and have a contract. Okay, no problem. Thinking another 6,000 down the pan, I'm checking how much I got in my back pocket, about 30 euros and an old crisp packet in my back pocket. That was it. So I said, well, look, I really would like to give it to Key Records and release it. He said, well, let me tell you a bit of amazing news first. And he said, I think this will swing the deal for you. I said, okay. I thought, here we go. It's going up to 10 grand. He said, at the moment, it's on Central TV. I said, that's right. I said, it's been running for about 6 months, I think, by then. And he said, that's correct. He said, but I'm just going to let you know now, from next month, it will be Granada TV, London Weekend TV. He said, it's going nationwide. I said, no. He said, of course, they'll be behind the Midlands because the Midlands have already had the first series. I said, so I'm thinking to myself, well, if this has become so popular in Birmingham that people are writing to the television channel that how do I get the song? If it goes global, it's going to be even more popular, right? As theme tunes are. The theme tunes to Friends, that had earned $10 million before it even went on to DVD, just from the television. So I knew there was potential money. So I said, okay, brilliant. He said, that's not been released yet, but I can guarantee you absolutely it's going to be released in all Granada TV, Grampian, Scottish TV. Fantastic. We got a couple of months to plan that. I said, well, okay, can we? He said, well, let's do it. And he typed up a deal. It was the most bizarre thing. I'm sitting in this multi-million-pound types of the deal, Key Records. So I said, well, and how much have we got to pay? Well, I nearly fell off my chair. He said $500. I said $500. Yeah, okay. And I just said, is that Australian or American? I didn't guess. Because the Australian dollars would be less. American dollars. Oh, okay, no problem. I said, well, look, I'm going flying back to England in 2 days at the end of this conference. I'm meeting with Key Records, which I wasn't, of course. They were in Spain. I said, I'll get this signed. We'll get the money transferred. And away you go. He said, right, what you'll need is we'll send you over the master of the song, which you use to press your vinyl. I said, okay. So I thought, well, I can't say to him, send it to Spain. And I don't want Spain getting it because we'll never get it back. No. So I had it sent to me in Birmingham. He ordered all that. Thank you very much. Lovely to meet. And I'm like, Barry, I think you've just done a record deal. I think you've got a record. Now, I then go back to England thinking, blimey. In the meantime, I contacted Central TV and said, a few weeks ago, you had an inquiries from loads of people. How did you get this record? I said, great news. My office is based in Rubery in Birmingham. We're going to be releasing that on Key Records soon. And, I'll let you know as soon as it's available. Well, they announced that on the 6 o'clock news thing, Central News. Well, darling, people were coming to my office with £1 to buy it. And I haven't even got it yet. I mean, I've got the tape. But I said, look, you can't. It was because the single was only 99p at the time. I said, well, okay, I'll make a note of your name, and when we get it, I said, but don't give him the money till we got it. So I then phoned Key Records. I said, right, guys, I just think I've saved the day. I really think we've got this incredible opportunity. He said, what's that? I said, now, I'll tell you from day one, you dance producers, you dance artists, I know what you like. This is a pile of crap. It is rubbish, okay? But I told him the story about it being on Central TV, told him about all the locals, because then you just writ letters to the TV. You didn't have emails and that. They were showing Paul's letters on the desk that had written him. Now, I've got the rights to it for Key Records for $500. I said, I'm going to send you over, and I FedExed over a CD copy, sent it to them. I said, they've sent me some artwork, which was basically these butch ladies, which looked rough, you know. You wouldn't want to meet them in the dark. I wouldn't want to meet them in the light. You know what I mean? Honestly, I thought, okay, stand well back. I've sent them to Spain. I've contacted the guy from Monaco within a week. And I said, right, brilliant. T Records are going to do it. They'll send you the money, and that'll be our first single. We'll put everything on hold with Norma for the minute. We'll get that out, and we could make £250,000 in a matter of a couple of months. So let me do it. Okay, great. Well, they received the CD the next day by FedEx. He phoned me, he said, Barry, we can't release this record. I said, what's happened? I said, whatever trouble you've got there, this company's independent. He said, no. He said, it's the worst record I've ever heard in my life. I said, exactly. So that could make it the biggest record you've ever heard in your life. I said, please believe me, this record is in huge demand. And I then told him, within 2 months, it's going to be on 7 other networks in the UK, meaning every single person in the UK. I think we had 47 million people then. We got about 70 now. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to be huge. It's a pile of crap. I've got a contract. All you got to do is send the $500. Okay, all right. We trust you. You've been great. And don't forget, I'm owed $6,000, so I want this to work to get me $6,000 back. Anyway, then I said, right, I need you to send over, I can't remember, it was like $2,000 or $3,000 to press some records. He said, we've got no money. I can't. I thought, here we go. I've now got to suddenly press the records. I've got to spend another $3,000. I thought, what a twat. Anyway, I rung round. Anybody need a washing machine fixed? I need to earn a few quid this week. Got your roof painted, and you got a good bit of guts. I better raise another $3,000 for these records. Anyway, he said, don't worry. He said, one of the companies we work with that did all our pressings, they know how much money we had. They know how much and we became very good friends, and they made a load of, because don't forget, the people that pressed the vinyl made thousands and thousands, they probably made 100,000 because they had to pay for the vinyl, even though the packaging was rubbish. Yeah. They had to pay the pressing plant to do the vinyl.
Oh my
so
goodness.
He become good. And he said, I've told him that we're going to release a record with Norma in England. I've told him that you've set up a new company over there. He said, well, don't worry. When you're ready, we'll press you some singles to start off with. So we'll press a couple of thousand singles as a favour. Brilliant. I said, so what we'll do, let's put Norma's track on hold for a minute. Let's just pause all of that, because we've got a full album. At some point, we're going to get back from somewhere. And in the meantime, let's get this out. Let's get some money in the kitty. Okay, great. So then they pressed 2000. Now, I sent them the picture, and they didn't like the picture. Well, I didn't like the picture. It scared the life out of me. I wouldn't want to meet him in the daylight, but not in the dark. I really was that horrific, right?
They were scary, weren't they?
Yeah, they were scary, but it was of the time, and it was great, and it was everything about a woman's prison and all the things that happen in prisons. So they didn't like the picture, and then his brother said, no, we can't put our name on that, we can't do that. So they then pressed 2,000 7-inch singles of this Prison Starbuck H, but they didn't use the picture, they just put a set of prison bars on the sleeve. So they sent me the picture, and it was all taking time because we didn't have internet. So we got through. Oh yeah, I said, well, what about the picture of the girls? He said, oh, we couldn't. He said, we're just too embarrassed, we couldn't use it. I said, well, look, embarrassed or not, you're the one that's £500,000 in debt. I'm only $6,000 out of pocket. Nevertheless, get me the 2,000 singles, send them over, we'll crack on, we'll do the promotion, and then I'll get a distribution deal, and the distribution deal will involve, as soon as we get the promotion going, as soon as everybody knows it's available, the demand will be so huge, I'll go to a pressing plant and say, got a distribution deal, press 100,000 copies or whatever, and we'll be on our, I figured that much out, even though I didn't own a record company.
Yeah.
I knew that's how it worked. Anyway, they sent them. They got seized. They hadn't paid. They'd sent it as a personal package. So I never seen them. I never seen them singles ever. And unless there's a letter outside in my postbox, I'd never seen the $6,000. That was the end of that. I said, guys, this is insane. We've got this amazing record. We've got this amazing... Now, of course, 2 months has gone by. The record comes out in London. A record company called A1 Records, I knew, Ray Levy, I think his name was. They'd had a lot of hit records, and they put out any crap. If it was crap, put it out a good number one. My Ding-a-Ling, whatever, Bernie the Milk, but it didn't matter. Any crap, give it us, we'll put it out. Well, of course, he saw the TV series like we did, saw the interest with all the people, saw that there was this theme tune. He contacts, like me, I suppose, same process, got hold of this bloke in Monaco who owned it. And he said, look, I'm really interested in releasing a record. He said, well, actually, he said, I have already licensed it to the UK for Key Records, but we haven't been paid. So leave it with me and I'll find out what the story is. And I'll come back to you. Now, I'd got the exclusive rights for the UK for $500. That was exclusive. Ray Levy, trying to save money, said, look, I want to put it out as a single. One single, non-exclusive. Don't need the compilation rights. Just one single, non-exclusive. You can license it to anybody you like. So the guy from Monaco contacted me and I said, look, I'm going to be straight with you. They've got no money. They've gone broke. I'm not sending you the $500 because I don't see a way forward. So he went ahead and he went to Ray, who I knew. Now, we never knew each other. We never knew each other was dealing with the same thing. I just knew he was. He knew I was.
Yeah.
So a month later, I'm talking to Martin Levitt, one of my friends in London. He said, you ain't going to believe this, Barry. He said, you've told me all that saga about the prisoner thing. He didn't watch telly. He hadn't got a clue. He said, Ray Levy's just released Prisoner Star Block 18. And I said, no way. He's done the deal. He said, it's come out as a single. It came out as a single. It went to number 2 in the charts and he made £250,000.
You are joking.
Now here's the deal. He signed a non-exclusive deal for $250. I wanted exclusive because I thought that was the right one. Yeah. He got the non-exclusive rights, once, one use, one single, and then they could license it to anybody else. He made £250,000.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I bet you were crying.
And I thought, well, no, I was like, I've got to do a few more washing machines for the years out. So back on the roof, got the hole in the arse at the underpants and all, kneeling around on my knees, scruffing about, trying to make a few quid, thinking, well, I was nearly a hit record company. But
oh, my goodness.
And then I thought, you know what, Barry, you haven't got that album, and I've never had that album to this day. And later on, I'll tell you a story of what happened to the album and the song, because it's another twist on how record companies all work, and people who you think your friends aren't. So anyway, I then thought, well, that is absolutely insane. I was right, even though it was a horrible song. I was right that the fact that it was going to go nationwide would do loads. I was bang on. I got everything right. We've got Norma being offered half a dozen record deals. We've got all this going on. I've had an idea. Why don't I form a record label? And then if I pick up a song like that, but I don't want to release it because it's a lot of money. I mean, back then it was £30,000 to release a song, and another 25 if you wanted to make a video.
Yeah.
So it really was your Range. And I did lose my Range Rover on one song. I had to sell my Range Rover to pay off the debt. Anyway, I thought, no, I'll do that. Daddy being daddy, I decided to call my record label Tara Records. So what you got to do? Got to go to PPL and register. Go to PRS. I did figured out who you got to deal with, who you got to register. I go to PPL. I'm going to I'm dead proud. Going to call me record label Tara Records. I go to PPL to register it. We're really sorry, you can't use Tara Records. I said, I can. It's my daughter. He said, you can't. It's already owned by a band, a record label in Ireland.
Oh,
and they've got the right. So I couldn't use Tara Records. So Norma's in the car driving with one of the tour managers doing a gig. And she knew we were going to call it Tara Records because it was our daughter. And they're driving along. I said, look, we got a bit of a problem. We can't use the name, but I do want to crack on with this. I said, because I do want to put out a single another song we'd recorded was called Take Me Down Easy. I want to release it on my own label. So I'm not going to nobody else and having any of this nonsense. If I'm going to lose my money, I'm going to lose it on my own record label.
Yeah.
And we'd recorded this single called Take Me Down Easy. And I said, right, I'm going to do that, but I've got to quickly register a name. He said, look, you're like Batman, you are. You're like a crime fighter. Why don't you call the label Gotham Records?
Wow.
So I go back to PRS and PPL, who at the time registered I said, look, I want to call it Gotham Records. Yeah, absolutely fine. I'm registered as Gotham Records. Now, weirdly, I got offered a fortune later on to buy the name Gotham Records off me. And I said, no, I don't want to sell it. But there is a Gotham Records already in Australia, and there's a Gotham Records in America. But I owned Gotham Records in England, and that was the end of it. So we used Gotham Records. That's how the name came about. That was it. We put Norma's first single out, and I was really disappointed I couldn't call it Tara Records. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed on vinyl, when you have a piece of vinyl, if you look at the end where the needle ends and then stop, there's actually writing there on the vinyl, and it can be the catalogue number of the piece of vinyl.
Okay.
And what it is, so what they do, when they do what they call the acetate, that's the master, which presses the vinyl. You can you can scratch on the catalogue number to make sure you've got the right, because at this point the vinyl has got no labels on. So so I wrote on Love to Tara. And so on the first single, every one of the thousands we pressed that got Love to Tara, because once you scratch it on the acetate, it comes on every record. So that was the only I got me daddy bit in there.
You got your daddy bit in. Oh, bless.
Yeah, and that was great. And I released Gotham Records. And then, so of course, as I said, with that, during that period, I'd gone back to Meadham twice. I could see how big that was, and I could see, and I'll talk more in another podcast about Meadham specifically, because, again, so many incredible things. I mean, back then you paid £1,350 to register to go in. It was in Cannes, so as you can imagine, the holiday inn was a few shilling, right? And the Carlton Hotel was a few shilling.
Oh, I bet it was.
Yeah, there was no travel lodging.
No.
And everything was expensive. And even when you landed in Nice, which was about a 45-minute coach drive, you can get an helicopter to Cannes, but that was 100 quid. So as you can imagine, it's Cannes, it's where all the movie stars go. So I'm there realising this is not anything I wanted to do. I certainly didn't want to own a record company. Just wanted to manage one artist like Lulu, just focus on that, do the nightclub stuff till I got bored with that, and then just manage one artist, and that's my career set. Fit the odd washing machine, I'll put a fence up when I need a couple of quid. Or when the tax bill comes round, I'll nip up some things. So that, for me, all of that nonsense, finding a song, the song's dreadful, admitting it's dreadful, saving a company from who'd gone bankrupt, not even arguing when I lost my £6,000, not kicking up a fuss, then, getting a song, then finding out the song made £250,000. All it really proved to me was I was on the right line.
Yeah.
So I launched the label, and I remember the one time, and I'll tell you one very quick story before we finish about that. So I'm at Meadham, and now Meadham is like any other, it's a big conference centre, the Pallister Festivals. It's like being at the NEC Birmingham or one of the big things. You go in, you pay 1,350 quid, you register, you got a badge, and in there are 16,000 record labels. Sony have got a store, 100 feet long. Small record labels, like mine, would have a store perhaps 4 or 5 feet long. Yeah. But even that was £5,000 for the 4 days.
Oh, my goodness.
So you can imagine the money. Thinking, my God, I'll never have to fit a washing machine again if I can figure out how this lot works. And then I realised most of the business was done in one of the hotels was called the Martinez. Now, it's about 55 years ago now it started. It was just 10 people at a conference in the hotel. And then the next year it was 20. And then when I was going, it was 16,500, and they rented the Pallister Festival. But most people went in the bar, and I realised a lot of the business wasn't done in the Palace. You went around the Palace giving out your samples, and I gave out sometimes 5,000 Gotham Records bags with all my samples in. Because I actually went then for 27 years, every year.
Oh, wow. After
that. I learned how to navigate the nonsense. But I come out of the place, I get in the lift, German guy, hello mate, how you doing? What floor do you want? He said, first floor. He said, and I'll use the word that he said. He said, you got any shit with you? And I thought, is he talking drugs or crap songs? I didn't know, right? I'm not quite sure what he's asking here. Oh I said, I got some rubbish songs. He said, brilliant. He said, but I bet you any money you haven't got ABBA. I said, funny enough, I haven't. I don't like ABBA. I don't rate ABBA, and I don't. I said, but I have a compilation series called We've Got It Covered. So every time a new record came out, I got a dance artist, give them 200 quid, got them to record a dance version, and then we license it to companies all over the world from 200 quid to 500 quid. So that 200 quid could earn you 10 grand, 20 grand. Not hit record. This was just purely to fill up compilations. Yeah. He said, well, I'll tell you what, he said, I like you. I said, well, I like you, but we got to get out now. We're on the first floor. He said, come on. He said, I like you. He said, I need, and again, this was learning how record companies work. He said, I need 10 ABBA songs. I said, well, I've got no ABBA. He said, hang on. You told me that you record covers. I said, well, yeah, here's the copy. We got it covered. And he said, oh, yeah, good covers. He said, I tell you what I do. How much do you charge? I said, well, it cost me about 250 quid to record a song. So I'd want 2 or 3 times that. He said, okay. So I'll tell you what I'll do, yeah. And this is just meeting a man in a lift, right? He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 2,500 if you can get me 10 ABBA songs, dance versions. I said, okay. He said, actually, I'm going to give you 3,500. I said, I like you. Should we wait a little longer? It could be 5,000 by 5 o'clock. He said, no. He said, I'm going to give you 3,500 if you can get it done within 4 weeks. I said, it'll be done within 3 weeks and 4 days, I guarantee you. Gosh. Now, I don't know anything about it. I phoned the producer. I said, listen, we do the covers. Now, of course, ABBA, lovely. And I respect what they do musically. It's like the Beatles. I just don't rate them, but I know what they do musically and I know the amount of money they bring. So I respect ABBA, but I just don't like what they did particularly. But there are white bands, white vocals, pop vocals. So I then said to the guy, right, now, he said, I need 10, but I've got to have 12. So what's that? He said, don't worry, I'll get 2 remixes done. As soon as you've got the first 2 songs done, send them me. He said, and I'll get them remixes. He said, so what we'll do will be a 10-track album, but it'll have 2 bonus mixes on. Okay, brilliant. I understood remixes. I understood you just did another version of that version. Yeah, okay, no problem. He said, but I do need it within the 4 weeks. He said, I'll tell you the truth why. He said, I released an album 2 years ago, and it was like ABBA, like a tribute to ABBA, it was called.
Yeah.
And he said, I released an album. It was so popular. Every single record company that I sold it to around the world, every single one said, we want to sign the deal for the follow-up. He said, I signed the deal for all the follow-up, got all the advances. You get 50%. So say he was getting $5,000, he'd get $2,500 to secure the follow-up. So he probably did that 30 or 40 times around the world. He got this money in the bank and the group split up.
Oh, my gosh.
The group split up. So I said, I guarantee you in 3.5 weeks, you'll have... So I come back, I said to the producer, right, we've got to record an album, dance songs by ABBA. He said, which ones? I said, any, just pick 10. Just press 1 to 10. I'm not bothered. 10 ABBA songs. Right, get on that tomorrow. He said, hang on, we got a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, who's going to sing it? We need white girl vocal. Who's going to sing it? I said, Norma. He said, Norma. Soul singer, black Norma. Trust me, we can do it. You start recording the tracks. Within 2 weeks, I got Norma down there. She spent a day. She recorded the full album.
Oh, my God.
And I said, Norma, I need white girl, because don't forget she's a session singer.
Yeah.
So she knew about changing her voice.
Yeah.
I said, I need white girl vocal. Here's 500 quid. Day's work. Thank you very much. So she probably bought an handbag on the way home with the 500 quid. And then probably asked me for another 200 to put in it. So that's how it was. So she does the white girl vocal. We got the 10 tracks. I call him up. He said, right, I'm coming into London. We'll meet at the in Park Lane, Hilton or something. We met there, gave him the track. He treated me to breakfast, paid me my money, and he said, absolutely brilliant, great doing business with you. I said, well, and you? I said, well, what an easy job that was. And he loved the tracks. He said, now all I can do now, I can send that to everybody as the follow-up album, and none of them will be taking me to court for the money. So he did his deal, made his 40, 50 grand whatever he made.
Yeah.
I was happy with the 3.5 grand I got because I paid the producer a grand, I paid Norma 5, so I made 2 grand.
Yeah. Not
a problem at all. It was another learning process about licensing songs. Well, then, from then on, I released over 1,000 songs around the world. One song, a non-hit record, which we'll talk about when we get round to 1997, we made £47,000 from a non-hit record.
Oh, my goodness.
So
That's amazing.
That was a world that I didn't know about, I didn't plan, I didn't want to be in. Love the name Gotham Records, love my logo. When we went to meet them, we used to print, I think it was 2,500 bags with Gotham on. And wherever you walk round, because they'd all be picking up their samples, everybody was carrying Gotham Records.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, if I'd have had a camera phone then, they were going down the escalator and like 10 people would all have a Gotham carrier bag. It was like being in Harrods with them all coming down. What they do, they go shopping in Aldi, but they get Harrods carrier bag and put it in, right? And it was incredible. And as I say, I'd done 2 years. I did another 25 years of Meedham every single year.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
So quite amazing, really. But as I said, this sort of period there is 1987 through to about just coming up to 1990.
Yeah.
But what a baptism of fire.
Absolutely.
And in reality, I should have taught myself with that 250 grand.
God, Barry.
You know, I should have said, but really, I thought, well, it was never my 250 grand. It was going to them anyway. Yeah. So I didn't lose. And if what you haven't had, you don't miss.
Yeah,
so
I'm
like that, you know. I think if I made that 250 grand, we'll make one next Friday, you know, somewhere else. And that's, you know, and that really was that insane period. Now, in the meantime, Norma was doing all these sessions, getting paid, loads of gigs. We went out, as I said, we'd done that tour of America. We did Douglas Dunes and stayed there. They put us up for a week to do one show, which was amazing. Then we did several other places, and they even added gigs on when we were there because they were getting such good feedback about Norma. We went and did that one song in Atlanta, which was incredible. But then I'd also got this feeling, which I'll bring up. I kept thinking, Norma is amazing. She goes on stage, they go berserk. They go absolutely mental for her. She goes to a studio to work out the key. She'll come out, oh, we've done the track. We mean done the track. Well, she done the key in 10 seconds, and we just recorded the track in one go.
That's amazing, isn't it, really?
But I'm thinking, why is it such hard work? And I'll let you know about that as we go on. Because everything was right. Everything was right. But why was it such hard work? And it was hard work. And it wasn't till many years later, probably 10 years. So by then we'd probably been managing Norma for 15 years before I knew what it was. And we'll talk about that in the future. But yeah, so now I'm officially the owner of Gotham Records. I voted for Maggie. I've got a YTS girl working for me, and I'm piss poor broke.
And how amazing is that, really? You know, by chance, you sort of got into, you know, the record business. And so it's by chance. I know you lost money, but at the end of the day, it's been good for you because you've done lots of things since.
More money to go to college to learn. Well, you couldn't go to college to learn it. You can only learn it on the youth. But if you'd have thought, right, Barry, you need to learn all this, you know, if it was engineering or aeronautics or whatever, I'd have to go to college to spend 30 grand. But I think, you know what, if it cost me 10 grand to learn that lesson, I mean, absolutely, I've got no problem with that at all, really. And I even then, which we'll talk about later on, I did the Cook report. And we will talk a lot about it, but I used to have a briefcase, basically, and the briefcase had 2 cameras in. So when the briefcase was in my hand and I was carrying it, the camera at the front would film what I need filming. When somebody said, well, let's have a look at the documents then, I'd open the case on a desk usually because you're having a meeting, and then that camera would film them. But then, as a laugh, just as a joke, I formed a record label called Camera Shy Records. I only ever released one record of it. I just wanted to do it because, you know, us Brummies, we love sarcasm and we love to take the piss, you know what I mean? So I actually launched a record label called Camera Shy Records, and I released a cover version of that amazing Rod Stewart song, Reason to Believe, which actually was the B-side of Maggie Mate. Yeah, Maggie Mate was the B-side, but all the DJs were playing Maggie Mate instead of Reason to Believe, because Reason to Believe was the A-side. Yeah.
Talking about Rod Stewart, he's playing at Glastonbury, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Oh, my goodness, amazing.
I've seen some interviews today with him, with one of the people there, and he's got some great stories about Boy George, and Robbie Williams came on. I mean, whether, you know, a lot of people say, oh, Rod can't sing anymore. It doesn't matter. He can entertain. He can entertain. Exactly, he's got a great. I've been a Rod Stewart fan since back in 1969. You know, way back, and I've got every album, and even the latest album, the best of it, which is volume 700. I've just downloaded that. But 80, I think he's 80 now.
Amazing.
He's belting out the tunes. And he's doing Glastonbury, and it's cost him £300,000 to do Glastonbury.
Oh my God!
Because he's doing shows in Las Vegas at the moment. He did have to cancel 5 because he was ill, and he didn't want to miss Glastonbury. He's had to fly the entire band and crew from America to England to do Glastonbury, which I think he probably only gets 80 to 100 grand. It's not millions, because Glastonbury just said, that's your fee, take it or leave it. And all the artists want to do Glastonbury, so they take the fee. He said it's actually cost him £300,000 to do Glastonbury, but he's got Ronnie Wood getting up with him, and there's a couple of other surprises as well, because I think they're going to do the Faces tour. They're going to have a reunion of the Faces as well, because they've recorded a new album of their old hits plus some new ones. So I'm in the rock and roll business, baby.
Absolutely. And I remember this time, quite a few months, it was this time last year actually, you talked about, Lulu's going to be playing at Glastonbury, and we're all like, no, it's not going to happen. And she did.
And she's back on tour in October.
Amazing. She's just never going to give up.
But she did the final tour, which was going to be the final tour, and on the last night, which was the 60th anniversary of Shout, if you remember, being released. So it's 60 years since that was released. She did the London Palladium. All of the family and the dog got up on stage at the end.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
A week later, she'd been announced to do Glastonbury. She's out on tour in October, but she's got a book out. So she's going to be giving extracts from the book and doing songs. So it's going to be a slightly different Lulu show. But I've actually put in the diary to try and catch her in the town hall in Birmingham in October. But you never know. I could be in North Wales by then.
Yeah, you might do.
You know what I mean? But no, I mean, I hope that's interesting, because it's just
amazing.
I had no intention to own a record company, didn't want to own a record company, certainly didn't want to understand how record companies work. And I love learning of all the scams, because later on, we did the Cook report, and I did a lot. You remember a TV show called Tonight with Trevor McDonald?
Oh, I remember, yeah.
Well, I worked undercover for him as well. doing secret filming, and we exposed some stuff in the music business. So,
oh my God, you're a right Del boy, aren't you?
I certainly am a Del boy, but you know what? Never a truer story told, I tell you. And I'm loving life. I'm having a great time at the moment. So much is going on. We're just planning the next trip to America.
Amazing.
Where we're going to film more things. So, God may continue for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And thank you so much again for all your time. Thank you, people who listened. That's 21 in the bag. I've got the keys to the door and I'm off out.
Well, it's been absolutely fabulous as always.
Thanks, darling. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Until next time. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.